everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me for my Happy Day series. Now, this series is all about using what's in your stash. So I grabbed these two stamp sets from my stash. They're from Hero Arts. They're the Stamp and Cut sets. One is the butterfly and one is the flower. So I'm going to be making two cards today using those. And then I thought about using the sentiments from this stamp set. They're beautiful sentiments, but they were just too big. So I decided not to use those. Now, for my Happy Day series, I do love using my pattern papers because they just sit there, and I think we need to use those up. So here, this is the My Mind's Eye Cowboy 6x6 paper pad. I grabbed 4 pattern papers from that pad. Love these patterns. They're teals and blues and just vanillas and text papers. So I cut out a panel with one of the pattern papers, and then for my next one I am going to be using this beautiful damask paper. I'm going to cut out a strip just using my paper trimmer here, and I think the strip was just a little too big, so I end up cutting off a little bit more. And then I thought about cutting a strip out from this plaid paper, but then I thought, you know what, I have my scallop edge punch and I absolutely love it. It's an oldie but goodie, and so I'm going to be using that today too. I cut out a strip using that scallop punch. And then for this pattern paper, love that. It has a very faint text in the background. I'm just going to cut out a small rectangle using this pattern. And I don't know if you can hear it, but in the background my husband is mowing the lawn, so he's making his round. You'll hear him probably about every 3 minutes coming around. Okay, now for card number 2, I'm going to cut out the same exact elements, but using a different paper pad. This is the close knit paper pad from Crate Paper. And so we have both of our pattern papers. It was just easier to do two at the same time. I'm going to be using a card base, white standard A2 size white card base for both cards. Now let's jump in. I'm going to start off with this Stamp and Cut flower set. I love the Stamp and Cut flower sets because for one, they're very reasonable priced, and you not only get a small stamp set, but you also get a few of the dies that coordinate, which are perfect. So I took the green pattern paper for this card, and the stamp set has an outline of a flower, and then it has a what do you call it? It's the inside of the flower, I guess you could say. I'm just taking the outline and I'm going to stamp it all over this panel with some Versamark ink. And then you can see to the right I have an extra piece of that pattern paper. I'm going to stamp 2 extra flowers on that as well, and I'm going to use the coordinating die to cut those out. I actually ended up going back and cutting out one more of those flowers. I'm using Glacier White embossing powder from Nuvo, and then I'm just going to go ahead and heat set those, and then I'm going to cut them out. I love white embossing powder on any pattern paper that's a soft background. I think it just looks very vintagey and very antique-ish. And so love the way that turned out. Okay, now let's build our card here. Well, here's where you can see I only stamped 2 of the images, but I end up stamping another one. I used some temporary adhesive, and I'm just adhering them to some scratch paper, and then I'm using this is Fossilized Amber Distress Oxide ink. I thought I didn't have a Distress ink that was a real pretty yellow, so I'm not going to oxidize this or activate it. I'm just going to add a little bit of color to the center of those flowers just to make them pop. I'm going to remove that temporary adhesive. Lovely. Okay. Now I think we're ready to build our card. We have all our elements here, and then I thought, you know, we need a sentiment, so I grabbed a piece of white cardstock, and I didn't want a stark white on this card. So I had that dauber with the fossilized amber on it, and I just went over a little, shaded that white cardstock a little bit with it, just to give it a little color. And then I'm going to go in with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink, stamp my thank you, and taking that coordinating die, I'm going to cut out that sentiment. Now I'm going to adhere this really pretty floral paper to my card base, right in the center. And you can see it's probably about a 1/4 inch shorter than a standard size card. And then I'm going to adhere my little scallop edge to my, this is like a chevron pattern paper. I'm going to adhere that to the side there. And then I'm going to trim off the top, but when I trimmed off the top, it didn't give me a real crisp edge, so I grabbed my paper trimmer, and I'm going to trim the top and bottom of this piece here. Okay. Alrighty, now I'm going to grab my little embossed paper, kind of figure out my placement, and then I'm going to adhere that directly to that scallop edge paper. That way I can get that strip and then my embossed paper, and I can lift that up all together. I'm just kind of figuring out my arrangement, and as I was doing this, I thought it needed just a little bit more color, especially with that real busy background on my panel there. So in the stamp set, it had a little leaf flourish, and I'm going to stamp that on that embossed paper. I'm just using, this is C&CT stamp ink. It's olive, real pretty green, and I stamped that 3 times. Now, when I stamped this last stamp, I noticed that I stamped right over my embossed area, and I didn't like it, so I'm going to cover it up with one of those flowers. I'm going to pop my flowers up with some dimensional adhesive and just kind of arrange them around that greenery there. I think this, I just love the way this looks. I love vintage looking things, and I think this looks really antique-ish. Lovely. Now here's where I pop that up with some foam tape. I'm going to place that in the center of my panel. This is, I love Happy Friday, or I keep calling it Happy Friday series, but I changed it to Happy Day series because I want to do this throughout the week. But my Happy Day series I love because it's not too often where I get to use my older paper pads, and I think that we buy them, and I know that we buy them because they are so pretty, so we might as well use them up. So that's why I love the series. Now I adhered my sentiment, and then just for some finishing touches, I'm adding some Oyster Gray Nouveau Crystal Drops just around the card here. And that's it. That's my first card for today. Very simple but pretty. Love the way that turned out. Okay, now for our second card, I'm going to do the exact same thing basically. I'm adhering my scallop to that strip paper, and then I'm doing, this time instead of using a die cut for the sentiment, I'm going to stamp it directly on this panel, and I'm going to be using some white embossing powder, the Glacier White again. And this sentiment's so cute. It says, "Have a fabulous day." I don't know why I like that, but I do. And then I'm taking this pale creamy color, vanilla color, and then I'm taking the butterfly outline in this stamp set. Beautiful butterfly, and I love this. It's like the perfect size. I'm inking it up with some Versamark ink, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to add it all over this panel here, kind of twisting and turning it. I added Nouveau Glacier White embossing powder and I heat set that. And then I did, using another piece of the same paper, stamp the butterfly that I'm going to be cutting out later on. And then the stamp set has the inside of the butterfly, so I just decided to use my Memento ink to stamp the center of the butterfly. And then it did come with the die for that one as well. Now I wanted to bring in a little bit of color, so I used the Distress inks. This is Ice Spruce, and then it's Tattered Rose. There was really no pink in this in the pattern papers for this card, but it was such a pale, soft pink that I thought it'd really make this butterfly pop. So I added a little bit there, and then I'm going on top of that with some ice spruce. It just I think this was a beautiful card, beautiful color combination. And I'm just using my sponge daubers to color these in. I'm just touching it up with a little bit of that pink here. I'm going to go ahead and die cut those out and arrange my panel. And I did the same thing. I popped everything up, including the little butterfly, and then adding the finishing touches. I decided to use, this is a duck egg blue and Nouveau Crystal drops, and I think it needed a splash of a different color, so I think the blue just set it off. And those were my two cards, using what I had in my stash. Like I said, well, I don't know if I told you, but if I can find the stamp sets, I'll link them below. But like I said, using the things that are in our stash, sometimes we don't have access to them anymore because they, well, at least mine, I have a lot of old stuff. So I hope this inspires you to break out items that are in your stash. Thank you so much for joining me at the end here. There's 2 more videos with my Happy Friday series. Formerly Happy Friday series. Now it's the Happy Day series. You might want to check out. If you like this tutorial, give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, hit that subscribe button to see some more. I'm wishing you a wonderful, wonderful day. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.